How's everybody doing today? Good. Tired, did I hear? Did someone say tired? I'm tired too. It's Thursday, but it feels like Saturday. I think it's because I had to spend all that time in Lori Heckrell's class yesterday. They wore me out. It was a great experience. I spent an hour and 15 minutes with her leadership class, and we talked about leading change, and we talked about ethics a little bit. It's always good. Lori had me do that last year, and she had me do it again this year. So it's always good for me to spend time with students. Yes, Bernie?
If it feels like Saturday, can we have tomorrow off? Hey, quite a few.
I plead the fifth. All right, so not a lot on the agenda today. We're going to go over the board meeting. And did you have a question or just getting yourself in shape back there? He's got his arms going. You come sit down here. You're my entertainment. So anyway, we're just the agenda, and then Katie's got a couple of things that she wants to talk about, and Bill's got an announcement about scholarships. So that's pretty much what it is today. It was a really packed board meeting this month. We started out, we met at 4 o'clock, and Matt and Zach did a great job of giving the board and senior leadership a tour of the welding area. Now that we did the cleaning and the painting and the new, what do you call those, drapes around the booths? Curtains? Drapes, curtains, really? Does it make, good job, Kevin. But it was very impressive and what's going on down there, and it looked really great. And then we walked across the campus and went out and saw the hydroponic tables in the Hort area and what we're doing there and description of the curriculum. And then Matt showed us where the honeybee hive was. And so it was really good. The college looked great. It was clean. It was together. It looked like a great learning environment. So thank you to those of you who've been working really hard to keep our facilities looking top notch. It does make a difference. We have to look like a college. We are a college. We have to look like a college, and I think we're doing a really good job of that this year. So thank you to all of you who are working so hard to really make it look good. I know the board was very impressed, and we want to continue to improve our facilities. And if we ever get a state budget, I can talk a little bit about that too at the end. I'll add that there was a president's conference call after the governor's budget address yesterday. So I will give you an update. Kevin and I joined the call. It was for the university and community college presidents, and they gave us a little bit of information of what the governor is proposing in his budget. So we started with that, and then we went right into Dave Damon. I know I saw Dave walk in here. Hi, Dave. Look at you, got a tie on again today. It's a special week for you? Dave was introduced to the board as the new KCEA president and said a few words about our relationship and working together and looking forward to going into negotiations and getting some things resolved and moving forward. And I appreciate that Dave is so nice and close to me so that we can converse as we need to about issues affecting the faculty association and want to continue to have a really good working relationship. So that was our first thing. And then Mark Lanting, who is all spiffied up today as well, did a presentation on grants, and we're going to ask him to come up and just do probably a brief overview of it if you're willing.
10 slides.
That's wonderful. Just to give an idea, flavor of what Mark has been working on in the world of grants. This is a piece of his job right now and responsibilities, but if you want to come on up and do we have a different, is that okay, Kevin? Okay.
Good afternoon, and good to see all of you. This is a brief summary of what I presented last night. As many of you know, a lot of my world right now is in accreditation and ICCB recognition and things like that. We are already launching our work with a systems portfolio that's due of us in June next year, 2018. And so that's a big part of my world. That also involves AQUIP action projects. Just real quickly, at all times, AQUIP institutions have to have 3 projects going. action projects. And we closed one in December. That was Katie's project where she was taking the lead on interactive maps. At that point, we were putting our heads together as to what should our next project be. And the thought is, well, what are we doing right now that would align well with our equip work? And that was designing and integrating a grants infrastructure. And that's been what I've been about the business of doing. So I'm just going to share with you exactly what's in the project charter that we sent to HLC, a couple of those points. And then I'm going to show you the larger deliverable, and that's the grants tracker that's live and active. And I can tell you where it's at on my KC and everything too. So what we shared with HLC is that we recognize the need to become less dependent on state funding. In order to build toward greater fiscal autonomy, we will benefit from an action project focusing on growing our capacity to seek, manage, and maintain inflow of grant funding. And that's been a large part of my world in these last months, where I've been spending a lot of time seeking out new opportunities, working with small groups and departments to hear about what some of your capital needs are. Dave and I have been working on getting a use of force training lab. We have some funding for that, but we have a long way to go. Worked with Joe Dom and Marianne Coles on a trucking simulator. Really cool thing. It's got like 3 screens and the wheel and a shifter and everything, and you can crash. It's really sweet. And to have one of those saves a little bit of wear and tear on your actual trucks, as it turns out. And so we're going to be working in earnest on getting something like that, because we are having to pay for a ton of repairs on our trucks, and it's never cheap. Students are learning multi-year shifts and transmissions, and they tear it up. So working on all kinds of things like that. And then, grant projects, things that lead to student retention and success. Those are what kind of ring my bell and get me going. So one of the things that we're doing, one of the goals of this project, is to have a grant evaluation application process. We need to make sure that all the grants that we're writing for align well with our mission and vision. There are tons of grant opportunities out there, and not all of them are a great fit. And sometimes it's just the fact there's just not enough revenue from the grant to make up for the amount of work that you have to put into it. And so one of the things that we want to work toward in the next year is that every grant we submit should have a senior leadership team sponsor. So that gets on the SLT table, it's talked about, it's transparent, everybody knows what we're all doing. We're going to make sure that every grant has a project manager, a fiscal manager, and somebody who's going to take care of the reporting responsibilities as necessary. Writing the grant, it's a big job. Every one requires a pretty significant amount of work. Some require significantly more than others. But then the grant management process going forward is very, very cumbersome. So it's important that we identify who's doing what every time we do a grant. We're going to be setting goals now that we're becoming less dependent on state aids and more focused on other revenue streams. Well, how many grants can we write in a year that are appropriate to mission and vision? And then in terms of the quality of grants management and what we're doing, let's think about the number of grants applied for, the number received, the amount of revenue brought in, and the kind of cool projects that we're now able to do, right, that we weren't able to do before. TRIO is a really good example of providing TRIO services now through that Department of Education grant that we weren't otherwise able to do. Final goal is to have a maturing and institutionally integrated grants infrastructure by fall 2017. Sounds ambitious, but we have lots of milestones that we're going to be hitting along the way, and the intent is to be a well-oiled machine by that fall 2017 date, and that's when we're going to send our final report to the HLC, tell them what a great job we all did together. It fits our accreditation well. When we write these parts of systems portfolio, we'll be able to say that we've been really intentional about selecting partners for collaboration, and that we've been mindful about allocating resources to advance the institution's mission and vision while upholding institution's values. So the grant tracker I mentioned, it shows some neat things. It's a big workbook that shows and totals grants awarded, shows the grants that are in development, shows the grant prospects. These are ones that we're trying to figure out, well, are they a good fit and are we eligible? Should we pursue further? shows grants denied and reasons for denial, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute, and an archive of grants that are worked on but are on hold for some reason or another. Just real quickly, here are some of the new grants that were we not really grant focused right now, we may not have written for. Vulcan Materials for welding students materials. Allen Foundation, we wrote for a high tunnel greenhouse and watering system. American Honda Foundation, we wrote for 10 EMSA tuition, textbook, and fee packages for underrepresented and or low-income students. And the NRA Foundation, we wrote for funding for that use of force training lab that I mentioned. Some new grants in process. Well, the first two we've written for and received money from before. They're new grant projects, educated workforce programs, and the match for use of force training lab. Exelon is a brand new grant. Exelon runs the big power plants in Illinois. They provide grants for STEM scholarships and STEM-related equipment. Intelligent Community Initiative is one Betty and I began working on some months ago, and we're going to write for retention-related and success initiatives for health and education area. Let me show you the grant tracker quickly, just so you can see what it looks like. So as I mentioned, it has these tabs along the bottom here for grants awarded, grants submitted and pending, in development, and so on. The grants awarded is a sum total of all the grants that we wrote for in this past year since the beginning of FY17. And so it's living and active and will be added to. And I won't go through all of them because there are many, many, many of them. And then it totals over here and shows that we've written for and received funding for about $1.8 million in grants so far in FY17. And please, that's for a lot of people. A lot of these grants are written for every year by like adult education and the Perkins and Perkins Leadership. So it's representative of a lot of hard work that's been going on for a long, long time. But here are some new grants submitted and pending, like I mentioned. And so we're keeping track of how much we've asked for and when we submitted and what they are and everything like that. This is grants in development. These are ones that we're pursuing and thinking about. Well, no, they're not just thinking about, but rather we're working on those applications at present. Grant prospects, this is kind of like the idea file, and we're waiting to see, or investigating to see, if it's a good fit and if we're eligible for these different grants. Grants denied, we don't put this in here just to make us feel bad, because there are a lot of reasons to be denied grants, but I think it's important that we memorialize that and say, okay, we wrote for this one, but what's the reason? Well, it says the response was, this grant was very competitive and we're limited in amount of recipients we could fund. It means we should definitely go for it again, should the occasion again present itself. And then in archives, sometimes grants just don't go anywhere, and you get an email that says we're not seeking, new projects at this time, or whatever. But I think it's important to note and have a record that we've gone for something, and maybe the opportunity will avail itself again in the future. So that's the grant project and kind of where we're at and where we're heading with it. Are there any quick questions I can answer at this time?
So obviously this is a lot of work to keep track of all of these grants, and you need someone who's just mining out there, mining for them, and so Mark's doing an excellent job in leading that initiative for us, and the board has asked that every month they get an update of where we're at with our grants. Do you have a question, Ben?
I believe Mark mentioned that would be on MyKC, but I'm not sure if
Oh
we
yeah,
saw where.
I'm sorry, I should have mentioned. It's on the Vice President of VPIE, what is that again? Institutional effectiveness, like home documents. And so if I can, maybe I can put out a portal or my KC announcement as to where that is, just so you can be looking at it. I update it feverishly. Anytime there's any change, I just like keeping that thing up to date. So why don't I put an announcement out there exactly where that's at for everybody. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Excellent work. Thank you very much. Bill did a report on the foundation at the board meeting, and we had a foundation board meeting last Monday, or this Monday, again, a little off on my days, on Monday before the Tuesday board meeting, and it really went well. I feel like we've turned the corner with our foundation board. Our new foundation board is figuring out how to work together. It was so crowded we had to scramble and bring in more chairs, and Katie was bringing in her desk chair, and that's a really good problem to have, and the community is really behind the college and working hard to raise funds and doing a really good job on our initiatives. We gave them a vision, and they are happily working on it and helping support us. So good things happening with the foundation. Do you want to just do your announcement right now about the scholarships, Bill?
Right. Thank you. And along those lines, should I do this? Everybody else? Me. I'll do this. I can just take it. Thank you. Very good. Some more good news. The foundation does a lot of things year in and year out, and one of the best things that we do is to raise money for scholarships so students can get enrolled and stay enrolled. And we have 2 rounds. There's a fall round and a spring round. So in advance of the fall round, we have to collect applications. The application period begins on Monday, the 20th, and goes through April 7th. So for those of you who are going to be teaching or counseling or advising our students, please don't hesitate to let them know that that is the case. Last year we gave out about $260,000 in scholarships based on private donations. This is not state aid and federal aid. And we hope to exceed that by a lot this year. We've got some new funds, and we want to make sure that all of our funds are working in the direction of student support. So, and if you have any questions, please. Pardon? It's going to be Monday, February 20th till April 7th. So it's an ample period to get the word out, and if there are any questions, please let us know.
Well, we'll do some sort of formal.
And oh yeah,
Yeah,
and I
Katie
should, key point. Next question the student will have is, how do I get to this? So one easy way is to go to our website and go under Foundation and Foundation Scholarships. I think it's 3 clicks. I hope it's about 3 clicks, maybe it's 4. But it's right there. It should be pretty obvious. And don't hesitate to take a look yourself, and then you can be more directive on that. And we'll have more, as Lori said, we're going to have more marketing around that. Any questions? Yes, Ann?
They'll apply now for next.
For the fall, yes, correct.
And one of the things I think we want to add is that we have been in conversations with the foundation board and our college board regarding our Dreamers, our DECA students. There will be funds available to those students coming this fall. So if you have any in your class or you know of any, and some of them are pretty okay with self-identifying, make sure that they understand that you do not have to be receiving federal financial aid to be eligible for those scholarships. So more information will be coming on that, but this is a little bit of a change for us, and it's a new initiative that we're undertaking at the college. These students are here legally. There's nothing illegal about these students being on our campus, and there are some people, including myself, who financially want to support these students. They've come to me, they've shared their stories with me, and they are incredibly compelling. And so just met with Bill recently and said, okay, I know where I want to put my foundation money, and so we're going to start a scholarship, and some other, Ken Dubler and his wife Sue have also committed some funds to this initiative. So make sure you pass that word, because that is a new fund, scholarship fund for us. So more to come. Thank you for your leadership, Bill. You're doing good work for us inside and outside of the college. We had a facility condition report. We've talked about that a couple of times. Kevin's been working pretty hard on that, getting a company in here to kind of look at our facilities and determine what we need to prioritize as far as updating, from roofs to ventilation systems to stuff I don't get. But anyway, I like it pretty, but we need to make sure the water isn't coming in. So they're going to be giving us a report, and we'll be sharing with that. And then what we're going to do from that report is we're going to come up with a long-range plan of things we have to do in our facility to keep it going and to keep it running and moving forward, and that we have good space and get all of our classrooms reopened. Some of them are closed, as you know, and we want to work on that. We probably don't want to talk about the John Roberts. I need to make a call there. But Bob Hammond, I think, helped in that endeavor. I'll share with you. But we do have a winner for the John Roberts Award. It is Bob Wildenrod, thank you. And we need to connect with him, but I think via the grapevine he already knows that he's getting it. So he'll receive that at our spring commencement. He's been a long-serving member of our foundation board and has done a lot of really good things for the college and community. So we'll be sharing more of that as we move forward. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the budget. We shared the budget assumptions. We do this in February because in March, the board has to set the tuition rate so that we can load it into the system for when registration opens in April. So we do a preliminary overview of the budget this month. We'll do another summary of it next month before they take their vote. So with that, Kevin and I will quickly share. We kind of tag teamed this. I will do the big overview, and then Kevin can share a few of the details. How are we doing on time? We're doing okay. All right, we'll kind of move this quickly forward, and we can make this PowerPoint available as well. We can put it out on the portal so that if people want to see this, look at it a little bit more closely, they certainly would have the opportunity. Okay, so first of all, our operating budgets back 2 years ago, we were at 23.2 million. Took a dip with the lack of state aids. We are proposing next year that we're at 21.1 million, and you can see the breakdown. We're going to be down to 7% of our budget, our Kishwaukee College budget from the state. This 57% tuition and fees, if you look at reports from other colleges, that's high. Most of them are reversed with local and tuition fees, but we are just not a property-rich district, so we have to rely more on tuition. Fund balance, we're doing okay. Again, this was more for the board because they, of course, are very concerned about where our fund balance is. The fiscal year 16 is actually 3.9 million. I was a little off on that one, but of course, my good friend Jill, who loves to correct me, told me it is 3.9, and that's good because we need her keeping track of our money. Our projected ending balance, that's a conservative 4 million. I truly believe if you look in the board packet, you'll look at where we're at our expenses at this point of the year. We are below as percent of the year gone by, so it probably will be a little bit higher. Again, everybody's doing a great job of not spending what they don't need to spend, and so that will help our ending balance. And then the board guideline, that's fine, Kevin, you can keep going on. Okay, so here's our budget assumptions for fiscal year. It says 17, but it's really 18. Sorry, missed that slide on the PowerPoint. Reduce state funding by an additional $500,000. So our operations budget, we are going to project, or we are going to plan for $1.5 million of state aids. These are our property tax values. We already know this year it went up 6.2%, and we are estimating 2.1 next year. Sam Overton, who's helping us, former CFO of Rock Valley, worked with our counties and is pretty confident, and he said that's pretty conservative, and we'd always rather be more conservative. We are anticipating no change in enrollments. Okay, how are we anticipating no change in enrollments when enrollments are a little bit down this semester? Overall, right now it's looking like we're down about 3.1%. But when you look at our applications, especially our in-district applications, and those are the ones we do about a 67 to 70% matriculation from app to enroll, we're up 19% for next fall. So I'm going to be confident that we're at least going to be flat in our enrollments. Pay increases, we're going to put in pay increases for everybody. There are some people who didn't get them this year. All of us who are professional staff did not get pay increases this year. We are putting pay increases into the budget next year. And then the represented, the committed, those are the people who are in our unions, and they have pay increases in their contracts right now, and we are currently working on the faculty contract. No change in health insurance costs for 17. We've already talked about that. That fiscal year starts in January, and we put in a 4% increase for 18 just in case. We don't know. We have absolutely no idea where that's going to end up, so we thought let's just put a little bit into. That was Kevin. Good job, Kevin. So here's our revenue strategies for next year. We're looking at an increase of $10 for tuition up to $139. This is still a pretty good number. We're having a hard time getting the numbers from the other colleges. We're hearing rumble that some are going up considerably. The last 3 years we've done $10. We're going to suggest $10 again. I don't think it's going to be out of line with what other colleges are doing. We're looking at variable tuition for 9 CT programs, 1.5 times the tuition rate. This is really for those programs where the costs exceed the revenue that's generated because of things like student to staff ratio and equipment. And so it truly is just trying to be fair in what you get in your instruction is what you pay for. And then we're also going to implement a half credit hour lab fee for courses with instructional lab. This was a hard one to describe, but here's an example. Chemistry class. It's 3 credits, but you meet 5 hours a week because 2 hours are lab. Those 2 lab hours, you're going to pay for half credit. And the reason we're doing that, again, to be fair, is because we have to pay instruction to be there during those hours. But the students aren't earning the credit, so we didn't want to charge them the full tuition, so we negotiated, had conversation and thought half tuition would be a good place to go with this. This, again, is not a brainchild that I came up with, but I was hearing other presidents talk at presidents' meetings that other colleges are going to this, and I thought it seemed, again, like a reasonable thing to do. Technology fee. We are going to eliminate that online course fee of $30 per student because we feel like all students benefit from D2L, and that's what that $30 course fee was going to pay for. So we're kind of flattening that out, and so the technology fee for all students is going from $5 to $11, and there will be no online course fee for those students. So when people have to call and say, your section of the class was closed, but you can go into this online course, and they don't have to go, oh, and by the way, it's another $30. That was a real problem. So now it's just across the board. There is no extra charge for online courses. And then we are also reducing individual course fees, and I know Kevin will talk a little bit more about that. So cost reduction strategies. We will continue to really critically assess filling vacancies and evaluate positions to determine alignment with college goals. So currently this year, we have 6 full-time positions that weren't filled. We have 4 full-time positions that became part-time positions. And we're looking at next year if there's places that we can maybe move people to help fill critical needs. No reduction in force plan. I've said that. I don't want to do layoffs. I don't think we have to do layoffs. I am now putting it in writing. We have no plan to do layoffs. On a mass scale, there is no plan to do a reduction in force like we had last year. Reducing travel, again, people are being conservative with travel. We've held the lines. The budgets that were submitted had less travel. Other below-the-line expenses, I call them below-the-line, non-salary expenses, have had some reductions. And again, capital projects. That's where, if we get state money, we will pay for capital projects, things like computers, carpets, rooms, roofs, lights, technology, all of those things that are part of a college. There is a little bit more we had to put in this year's budget, but we are going to try to hold the line on that and just use the operations budget for staffing and those kinds of needs. I'll follow up on the conversation I just mentioned earlier about with the presidents. So Governor Rauner has put in his budget for universities and colleges that we would receive flat out 85%, the systems would receive 85% of the funding from fiscal year 15 with an option of getting an additional 5% with performance-based funding. So that could put us at 90% of fiscal year 15 state aids based on the formula, which would be a roughly $4.25 million. We're building a budget on $1.5 million. So that extra money would go for things like getting our reserves up to that $5 million and supporting our infrastructure and all the things that we have put on hold for the last couple years because of not having resources. And we will, again, once we get the report from the consultants about our facilities, we will put the list together. You do the A, B, and C for your projects, your capital projects. We'll look at that, and we'll bring it back to everyone, the list of how, if and when we actually get that money. If it goes from the governor to the legislature and they vote on it and everybody's maybe happy, then we'll bring that back. I put these up there for the board, and I'm going to put and show you again today quickly as well, because we have to keep these in the forefront. These are our priorities. These are where we're going to put our resources, because I do believe that these are our growth areas. K-12 partnerships, continuing to work on our pathways and dual credit, getting faculty involved in recruitment. It's so important for those students and faculty to have connections and relationships with you. And we've got to look at our communication regarding scholarships and our academically talented students and make sure they understand all the great things that we do here at Kishwaukee College for students. Michelle Rothmeyer has moved in an interim role into vice president. Her position became vacant. Instead of just filling her position, we are moving it to a K-12. And that person will oversee transfer. It'll do some K-12 things, but it'll also do some transfer things so that we make sure our transfer agreements with like NIU and others are clearly on the the web and our pathways. So they're, again, strategically moving around resources. So that position, and then we save money too because you don't have to pay that person as much. But so that's an example of a position that's posted right now that we move strategically, as I talked about before, to cover a need. Undecided students, I think some of this will roll into that. I've talked about this a number of times. We have to make sure people think that Kish is a great place to come if you're an undecided student. We want to make sure that we are doing a great job of helping those undecideds right out of the gate figure out what they want to do and what program they want to be in. Online, I don't think I need to say anything about that. We're rocking. Tim Lockman, I don't think Tim is in here. Tim has stepped up in a coordinator role. He's going to help us. He's getting a certificate in, an advanced certificate in instructional design and technology. He's going to help with ensuring that as we develop online, that we produce quality and that faculty feel supported in their development of online. Strategic course offerings. This is like looking at our scheduling, look at when students take our courses, and getting to the point where we don't have to have classes like with 4 students in. Do a better job of really looking at when we offer those classes so that they have a higher fill rate. And then I've already talked about the deferred action for childhood arrival students. We have so many of these people in our communities. I'm discovering this, and there even is, this decline in our enrollments this semester, and we've all been like going, how did this happen? What happened here? One of the things we're hearing is that people who fit kind of this definition are afraid. They're afraid to come to college, and we're thinking, so we lost some enrollments with our immigrant population, that they're worried, even though they're legally here, they're worried that we would turn in their names to somebody. That's what we're hearing from some leaders in those communities, and so it kind of makes sense, and we're going to do what we can to make sure they feel supported and help them understand and get the word out informally how we absolutely would never turn those names over to anybody if they're a student here. So we've got, there's just things, it's an interesting time, it's an interesting climate, and it's an interesting culture in our country. And so but we want to make sure that people feel supported and like they can get an education at Kishwaukee College. Okay, Kevin, your turn.
Okay, thank you. What I'm going to do is just go through some of the major line items on both the revenue and expense side, just to give you a flavor of what some of those assumptions mean in terms of dollars, and then and some more specifics on what we mean when we talk about differential tuition and so forth. So let's just start with the local property taxes. So Dr. Boritz already mentioned EAV increases for 2016 are pretty much in the book, 6.2. It was 7.1 in DeKalb and 3.6 in Ogle, and really for us, that's about 95% of our equalized assessed valuation. So what those 2 counties are going to be about what they're going to be. For 2017, but I should tell you, in the previous, 2015 was moderately positive, but the 6 years prior to that were all negative. And so we have 1 year here of 6.2. The question is that something that's going to increase into the future? Are we going to go back to the way that it was? We really don't know. These are actually going to be, these are the property taxes that will get collected in not until 2018. So that's a long way away. So what we did here is make an assumption of about 2.1% for CPI, which is the CPI. So that's kind of the estimate that we're going with. And using those numbers, it's for the first time an increase in several years in local property tax revenue of about $440,000. So that's good news. The state we've already talked about. We're going to continue that reduction down to $1.5 million. Yes, the governor has put 90% into the budget. He did last year too. So you might be following some of the news about what's called the Grand Bargain, which is a series of 13 bills that the Senate is working on right now. And so the hope is that, and the way that works is all 13 have to be approved before any of them go into effect, and one of those would be for us. So there's some work that has to be done on those, and so we'll just keep following the news on that. For tuition and fees, so we've talked about the $10 increase, but just so you know, not all of that $10 gets put into what's called the education fund or the operating fund, and that's because there was a bond issued to help pay for the student center, and it was an alternate revenue bond. The payments are supported by tuition dollars. And so when we sold that bond, we told the bondholders that we're going to reserve $4 of our tuition. We're going to put that over here, and then every year that's what we're going to use to pay you back. And that was sufficient back when enrollments were higher. It's not anymore, and so the $4 won't cover the bond payment next year. And so we're going to set aside 2 of that, we're going to move it over, and that's going to help us pay the bond for that. So in terms of operating dollars, we're only going to get to keep 8 of that. We've talked about the technology fee increase and the corresponding elimination of the online course. So we're going to do that. Differential tuition is going to be at 150% for the 9 programs, and so the 9 programs right now are automotive, CAD, collision repair, diesel, electronics, our manufacturing classes, our welding classes, and then in the health and education area, the therapeutic massage and aesthetics. And so these are going to be similarly how we did nursing and radiology previously. We're going to phase those in. So the students already in the program are going to continue to pay what they're paying. The new students are going to pay the differential tuition. But at the same time, for those courses, we're going to eliminate, the goal here is $150,000 reduction in course fees for those same areas to help offset that. Because really what we want to do is tuition should pay for the cost of providing the education. The fee should go for paying for the supplies for the class. So we're trying to straighten that out a little bit. And then the new lab fee that Dr. Borowitz talked about, these are going to be only for the non-differential classes. These are the situations where you have contact plus lab and lecture classes plus, lecture classes plus lab is more than credit hours. So it's a way for us to recapture some of that cost. Not all of the dollars that we're assuming will be increases in revenue for tuition are because of increased tuition or fees. For instance, for truck driving, and we have $235,000 in the budget in an increase. That's just due to growth. And so Joanne and Marianne and Joe Dom in that area have really done a nice job with ComEd and NICOR and some of that, coming up with contracts and bringing more students in. So, and this is some of the results of that. Another main item, so we talked about local, state, tuition and fees. The other kind of source of revenue is our sales and service revenue. This is mainly in the Center for Business Development, the contracted training that they do. And so this year it's going to, last year they had over 100,000 in there for revenue. They're kind of retooling that area, and we've dropped that a little bit. So that will be a decline just a little bit in sales and service revenue. Those are the main items for on the revenue side that comes up to just a little bit over $21 million. On the expense side, we'll switch over there. Salaries, so what we're going to do this year is we're going to budget 100% of salaries. So one, we make sure that they're in the budget, all of them. And then 2, we're going to, when people do leave, we're going to be able to pull that money out, and we'll be able to set it aside and say, okay, is this money that we're going to use for the same position, a different position, or how are we going to spend the money? It's going to help us track the way that we spend salary dollars. And again, it was already mentioned, we're going to include committed salary increases and non-represented increases. Benefits, what we've done for benefits so far is just assume kind of the same percentage of the salary last year. I think it's like 20.1%. For right now, we're just going to assume that same number for us going into the next year. The thing to remember about where we're at in the budget right now, and I probably should have said this earlier, but this is just kind of the first look at the budget. So we don't have all of the data that we're going to need. And one of the things that I need to do and we need to do is merge in everyone's elections into the database that I have so we can get a more accurate effect. But it should be pretty close to that. Another big item is the contractual services and the expenses. And so the contractuals and a couple of the next items, these are all the items that when you fill out your budget request form or your budget manager does, this is where all of this lands. And so we kind of divide it based on the account numbers. But we mentioned before that we're going to increase the technology fee to cover and eliminate the online course fee. And so what we used to do for the online course fee is we would have that in a separate restricted account, and we would put over here, and then we would pay for the Desire to Learn and all of the software costs for that. Well, if we're going to move the revenue into the education fund, we're also going to move the online fee expense as well. So that's going to pull in about $135,000 of expenses into the online fees. We've also, in this year's, next year's budget, we've cut the operations and maintenance expenses by $50,000. This is mainly due to one of the things that Keith's talked about is doing more of the work with internal staff rather than calling electricians and plumbers and so forth. So there's going to be some expense savings there. And then the other ones are materials and supplies. These are your requests that we put into the budget. They came out, you requested about 5% lower than last year. For travel, we reduced that by about a third. So travel's been reduced. On the utility side, we've actually reduced utility expenses for the college by $50,000 this year. Some of it's going to be divided between an auxiliary fund and the operating funds, but as a college, we'll be paying about $50,000 less. We used to charge, the bookstore used to pay for a pretty big portion of the college's natural gas bill, and so we're going to kind of allocate the cost based on their square footage. So, but overall, as a college, we're budgeted to spend less than last year. And then on the capital outlay side, there are a few things we want to do here. Right, this year we have about $93,000 going up to $306 in the next budget. These are mainly going to be for laptops, hard drives, and there's some of the older classrooms where the AV is in need of replacement, so we're going to do that. And then in the other category, the other major expenses are all kind of grouped together, and that's going to be where all of our tuition waivers live, our bad debt, and to the extent we have any contingency, it would go in that as well. So when you take all the revenues and all of these expenses, we end up with pretty much a balanced budget right now. There's a little bit of contingency in there right now, but again, this is just the first look at the budget. So these aren't we don't have these down to the dollar quite yet. We'll get there, but not right now. Because there's further refining. One is, we needed to present this to the Board of Trustees and get their input. I'm still hopeful that we'll get news from Springfield. I may be the only one, but I am hopeful that something can get done there. Can it really be 3 years without a budget? Enrollment changes, we got to make sure that where we're at now is kind of where we're at later. And then to the extent we get more information about property tax values in our counties, we can make some adjustments there. And then as things change between now, we don't actually approve the budget until September. That's kind of but by, April and May, we want to get these it's pretty much nailed down because July 1st, of course, all the budgets have to be loaded. But there could be changes to, we call them below the line needs, non-salary as things happen. So anyway, that's just a quick budget 101 from where we're at this year, and again, we'll keep refining those numbers.
Thank you, Kevin. So our next project, which we'll start next week, is to look at our auxiliary funds and our capital funds, and those are other big parts of our budget. So we'll share that information as we get that developed as well. So we spend a lot of the year doing budget. A lot more than I wish we had to, but these are tough times, so got to make a lot of good decisions with what we have. There were a few policies that were revised at the board meeting, some just aligned with the new KCSS contract as far as vacation days and things. We also made some changes to tuition reimbursement for professional staff and administrators, and looking at some vacation payout things. The biggest change with tuition is that instead of getting base dollars added to your salary as you earn additional credits, we're doing more upfronting of paying tuition. It just makes it easier to set salaries for professional staff rather than worrying about who's going to jump who because they're earning advanced degrees, and then you have to start playing crazy games with where you pay people. So I think it's just going to make it a bit easier, and so we're moving that forward, and the board agreed. So we want to make sure we're a college that encourages people to continue their education. It's always good for all of us to, right, Terry Lynn, all that learning we do. So we want to make sure that we support people who are interested, and sometimes upfronting more tuition dollars is really helpful. So those are some changes there. I want to just mention there are a couple of positions that will be posted in the near future. I know I said I would always share those here so that people can kind of understand why we're posting them. We are making a decision to return payroll to the finance, or to the business office under Jill. And when we do that, there's lots of reasons for it. So Sarah is going to return to the business office where she was a little less than 2 years ago. And she'll go back there. I know, it comes full circle, doesn't it? When someone said that to me, I'm like, oh, well, okay. There's only 3 community colleges in the system that have payroll in HR. And there are some very legitimate reasons for us to look at that right now. The Human Resources Office is going to move their location because of the nature of the way it's set up and trying to be confidential and serve people. It just isn't working. So there's going to be some shifting going on. But we want to make sure the people who are affected all know first. So I'm not going to talk about that this month. We'll talk about that next month because we should be in the thick of it at that point. And then, so we are going to post another HR position, an HR generalist position. So we'll have someone who can do all of the recruitment, someone who takes care of all the benefits, and that will be Michelle. Take care of all the benefits for all of us. Samantha will do labor relations, negotiations, all of the big picture items that happen in HR. And then we have, remind me, Megan, thank you, Megan Brandt, who does work study and other things that she does down there. So we'll have 4 people eventually in HR as we have now, but for a while they'll be at 3 until we get this all organized. So wanted to mention that. And then we are adding an assistant director of IT, which we used to have. As you all know, we've talked about it a lot. We're adding a lot of projects onto IT, and they have been gracious and they've been working hard. But we think it's time that we need to continue to move forward with our technology. We found a pocket of money with the money that has been put aside from that $30 fee for online instruction. There's a good pocket of money that we can use to fund this position for a couple of years until we figure out what we're going to do with it. So that one will not go against our operations budget. So we will move forward with that, and that one will be posted in the near future. And it'll be similar to what RJ used to do before he got moved into the director position. So when you see those posted, that's what's going on with those. And I already mentioned that there's the director of recruitment, and I can't remember what it. Student Outreach and Educational Partnerships, thank you. Okay, so let's see what else I have on here. I think I introduced the new staff last month. I shared the good news. If you want to see the highlights, you're always welcome to go check them out on the website. Nursing NCLEX exam pass rate, we're at 94%. Kudos, congratulations to the nursing folks, doing a great job. I already mentioned that our enrollments are up a little bit compared to where they were. We're still down. Overall in the year, we're down 3.1%, but a week ago we were down 3.3%. So even if we can do a little creeping through the course of the semester, that's a really good thing. So I think that's it for the summary there. Katie has something she's going to share, and then I have one more thing I'm going to talk about.
Everybody awake out there?
It's kind of dark in here.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, first, I just want to start off by saying thank you to everybody. If you recall, back in the fall, we did a MyKC survey with staff, and we had a pretty good response from it. And since then, the MyKC governance team has taken all of that feedback and put together a couple solutions to some of the things that we heard from the feedback. And one of them was finding forms on MyKC. Who has issues finding forms on MyKC? Okay, good. There's lots. And so that was one of the issues that we felt we could address. And so we now have on MyKC a frequently used forms page. So if you go up here to the little hamburger icon, and then down here, there is a frequently used forms link right up in front and center. And then here is a list of all the frequently used forms that were requested. So in follow-up to the survey that we did, we've sent out another request asking people if there were forms that you were having troubles finding, what were they? And these are some of the responses we got. The forms that are on this list are forms that are found out on MyKC. So there might have been other suggestions for other forms, but they didn't exist on MyKC, or they just weren't available in that format. So if there is another form on MyKC that you are having troubles finding and you think could be added to this list, please let us know. We understand that as people are using it and finding more forms, the list may change. So just please continue to send those to us, but hopefully this will be a good step in the right direction to people being able to find forms more easily on MyKC. Any questions on the forms? Everybody like it? Is that going to help, be beneficial? Okay, good. See lots of nodding heads. The other thing that we heard from the survey was just some additional training needs that people felt that we needed to address. One of them was for if you are a page manager or a team site owner on MyKC, with the transition to the new platform, there was still some confusion on how you update the pages. So in the next few weeks, we are going to be launching a couple training sessions for those that manage pages or team sites. And an email will go out later today to all those page managers with the dates and times, and then we'll just ask that you sign up for that in advance, because it will be, not only will it be a training session, but it will be a hands-on session as well. So we'll be in a computer lab to where we can walk you through. There's going to be questions and answers. So hopefully that will help resolve some of those issues regarding being able to modify pages within MyKC. And then we will also be doing another training for just a MyKC 101, and we're looking to do that during Staff Development Day. It's just going to be kind of an overview on tips and tricks, setting up alerts, using the search feature, and really understanding how MyKC can help you in your day-to-day operations. One other thing I wanted to mention on MyKC is just a reminder that every single department on campus has somebody within it that can post announcements and events. So if you do need an announcement or event posted to MyKC, that one blank, not that though. Please, let somebody in your office know. It's usually the admins or the cabinet level individuals, but they can always post to MyKC for you. Any questions on MyKC? I know we're running out of time, so I'm trying to go through it quickly. No. And big kudos to the MyKC governance team. They did a great job combing through all of the feedback on the surveys and kind of coming together for these recommendations, and hopefully it will help us move forward. And then I also just want to mention that at next month we will be doing a small presentation. Lindsay Barron in our office and staff and enrollment services and IT for the last few months have been working together to put together a live chat for the website. And so we'll be looking to go live with that in the next month, but they've done a great job interviewing potential vendors, and it's come a long way to be able to have a live chat feature on the website. So stay tuned for that. And last but not least, if you live in the Kishwaukee College District, you probably received this in the mail the last couple of days, the 2016 annual report, and there are extra copies when you walk out the door if you would like some, but and if you don't live in the district, they are there as well. So did I get everything on my list? I think I did. Any questions on any of this? Okay, thank you guys very much, and stay tuned for more information on MyKC.
All right, so there was, of course, one more thing on that agenda at the board meeting, which I know has been the topic of much discussion, and I'm going to try to get through this. The board rewarded me with another 4-year contract, and it should be a very happy day, but it's been really tough. There's been a lot of criticism and a lot of negativity about me getting a raise of 5.7% and some benefits. The board has decided that I do a good job as your president, and they want me to stick around, and they want to pay me comparable to what other presidents make so that I stay at Kishwaukee College. And I have worked really hard in my life to get to the point where I'm at. I've had a lot of education and a lot of experience doing a lot of different things. And I know there's been a lot of external criticism through the newspaper and I'm hearing there's some internal criticism as well. I have said and will continue to say that I am supportive of raises for all of you because you're all working hard, and I am committed to that. Professional staff, including me, did not get a raise this year, and I've been here for a year and a half, and I did not get a raise. So the 5.5% really does cover 2 years of a fiscal year. So that is one thing. I think it's going to be really important, folks. It's important for me as your president to know that we're all standing together. I'm fighting for you, and you fight for me, and we're in this together, and that we are supportive as a community. It will be that ensures me that this is the right place for me to lead and to do the hard work that I do every day. I want to celebrate that I'm going to be with you for another 4 years. Help me celebrate. Help me feel supported in this, and that this is a good thing. And again, it really is. If you remember the comparisons of salaries we did 2 months ago or whenever that was, my salary was 4.5% lower than the average of the president's salaries a year ago, and this salary is for next fiscal year. So the 5.7% when you start to do comparisons of peers is not a huge increase. But I understand, and I think the media does not do us any favors in this area because they don't explain all this. And they didn't share the accomplishments that have happened at this college and the things we've done together. But I think it's important. I will fight for you. I'm going to tell you in the budget for professional staff for next year, we do have a 3% raise that we are forecasting, and the board knows it and they are supportive. So we are planning for raises for people. The KCSS contract, you got a 1.5 this year, you're getting between 1 and 3 next year, depending on how long you've been here, and maybe even another 0.5% if we do well with enrollments. We're in negotiations right now with the faculty. On average this year, the faculty got between 4.5% and 5% raises. And I know they're underpaid. I know faculty are underpaid. I saw the information, and we're going to work on that. But we have to stand together, folks, and we've got to stop some of this gossip and stuff that occurs. The media sensationalizes things, and it's painful. It's something we should be celebrating, and I should be celebrating, and I feel really bad about it. And that's unfortunate. I want to be your president. I want to be your president for a long time. But help me celebrate as we all celebrate our successes together. Thank you.